And the games begin! Jack and the Beanstalk versus Little Red Riding Hood. Both two different stories from the fairy tale genre. How do we know they're in the same genre? Well, both stories follow similar patterns of events. They start with words like once upon a time, and the main character outsmarts the villain in the end to live happily ever after. Sounds like a fairy tale to me. So stay tuned as Jack and the Beanstalk takes on Little Red Riding Hood as we compare the theme and topic of these two texts within the same genre. Before the games begin, let's recap these two stories. Many years ago, Jack's father was wronged by an evil giant. Now, Jack's family is so poor that they must sell their cow for money. Instead, Jack trades his cow for magic beans. He plants them and they grow into a beanstalk. He climbs the beanstalk and up to the giant castle he goes. He sees that the wealthy giant has food to spare, so Jack takes food and gold from the giant, climbs down the beanstalk, chops the beanstalk down, and the giant falls to his death. In the end, Jack and his family have a massive feast and much more money. And story number 2. Because her grandmother is sick, Little Red Riding Hood braves the dark and scary woods to deliver her a basket of food. The wolf in the woods is aware of Little Red's plan and travels to grandmother's house. He eats the grandmother, dresses himself in her clothes, and waits to eat Little Red. Once she arrives, he tricks her into thinking that he is the grandmother. Just as he tries to eat her, a woodcutter comes to her rescue in the nick of time and kills the wolf. Okay, so now that we've recapped these two stories within the same genre, let's compare their topics. So what is topic? Topic is what the book is mostly about. It's not the same as a theme, and it's not really summary. Oftentimes, it's just one word that sort of gives an overview of the story. When you compare the topic of two texts in the same genre, the first step, identify the topic of each text. Looking back at the key events in the story can help you identify the topic. We know that in Jack and the Beanstalk, the giant wronged Jack's father. Jack's family is now poor. Jack steals back riches from the giant, and then the giant falls to his death. So we can say that the topic of this story is revenge. Let's recap the events in Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood goes to deliver the basket to her grandmother. The wolf eats the grandmother. The wolf tricks Little Red Riding Hood and tries to eat her, and then the woodcutter kills the wolf. So we can say that the main topic here is more like self-defense, because in the end, the wolf dies because they're trying to protect Little Red Riding Hood. Step 2, compare the topics from each text. So now let's compare these two topics of revenge and self-defense. Both of these topics involve protecting your own self, even though you're actually harming somebody else. Both of these topics also require a specific perspective. For example, in Jack and the Beanstalk, he's taking revenge on the giant, even though the giant may not know that he's taking revenge on him. But these two topics are also kind of different. Revenge is more about payback, justice, and getting even, and it's on purpose, whereas self-defense is more about protecting yourself and less about actually trying to get back at somebody else. So we can see that these two texts within the same genre have similar themes, but they're not the same. So now, let's move on to theme as we compare the theme of these two texts within the same genre. The first step in comparing themes is you have to identify the theme of each text individually. I know that you already know how to identify themes, so we won't go over this. But we know that from Jack and the Beanstalk, the theme is that even a lowly person like Jack can become a hero. And you also know that the theme of Little Red Riding Hood is to be cautious and careful of your surroundings. Now that we know the themes of each of these texts, we can start to compare them. I think to myself, gosh, these themes are so different. How can I compare them? Well, why don't we do this? We can start with what we do know. We can start by contrasting them. So for the theme of Jack and the Beanstalk, it seems like the theme is really a lot about heroism and bravery and justice. And Jack is really on the offensive so that he can be a lowly person who becomes a hero. For Little Red Riding Hood, the theme is a little bit more of a warning. It's about caution, conscientiousness, and being on the defensive, being prepared for disaster. So now that I've identified these differences, it'll be a lot easier for me to find the similarities. If I think about it, I know that for somebody to become a hero, they have to take some risks. And same with being cautious and being careful of your surroundings. Sometimes that can be really risky. So both of these themes involve risk-taking. Okay, sports fans, we've compared and contrasted Jack and the Beanstalk and Little Red Riding Hood, both books in the same genre, in regard to their similar topics and themes. And there's no clear winner. So now you know how to compare and contrast the theme and topic of two texts within the same genre.